Carry On, Mr. Bowditch, by Jean Lee Latham. Chapter 16. A Simple Matter of Mathematics. On the evening of the 10th day, they fought their way clear of Sunda Strait and anchored. Prince called Nat to his cabin. He had a chart spread before him. "Well, Mr. Bowditch," he growled, "what do you think of the Dutch East Indies in general and Sunda Strait in particular?" Nat looked at the chart. "I'm dumbfounded," he admitted. "I've always thought of an island as, small. I thought when we got to the East Indies, we'd be just a stone's throw from anywhere in them. When it finally dawns on you, the size of them! 3,000 islands, over 700,000 square miles. It's amazing, isn't it? Take Java now. It looks small on a map, but it's several times as big as Massachusetts. A man certainly gets new ideas when he..." Prince slapped his hands flat on the table, stood and roared, "You mathematician! Is that all you have to say about Sunda Strait?" "Oh, the strait. I'd say it would be better to make your passage out in ballast. Just carry specie and buy your cargo in Manila. The higher we ride, the more chance we have of catching the wind. Prince glared. "You say it's a simple matter of mathematics, and I'll brain you." He sat down and studied the chart. "Now, to the next problem. Heaven knows how much we can depend on this chart. It's something over 1,500 miles to Manila. And what's between here and there?" He shrugged. "At least we know the latitude and longitude of Manila," Nat said. "We can set our course for it as directly as..." He looked at the chart. "As directly as islands, straits, and reefs let us, can't we?" Prince muttered something under his breath. "That's all, Mr. Bowditch." On Saturday, the 1st of October, Nat went to Prince's cabin. "We should anchor in Manila Bay tomorrow, sir." Prince stared at him long and hard. Suddenly he smiled. "That's so, Mr. Bowditch. Manila tomorrow, eh? I'd better lay out my go-ashore clothes." Nat shook his head. "I doubt if we'll need go-ashore clothes tomorrow, sir. I understand Manila Harbor is one of the biggest land-locked harbors in the world. More than 700 square miles. So Prince roared. "You mathematician!" Nat said, "Aye, aye, sir. I meant topside." What in the name of sense, he wondered, had set Prince roaring that time? Manila Harbor was one of the biggest land-locked harbors in the world. The next morning, they were standing off Luzon. A pilot came aboard, sternly ordered all men out of the chains, no sounding of the harbor was allowed, and conducted them to their anchorage. Nearby, another ship flew the Stars and Stripes. No sooner were they anchored than the ship hailed them, and the master, Captain Riddle, came aboard. "From Salem, eh? 3 cheers! You're the first Salem ship ever to enter Manila Harbor. How was it around the Horn?" Prince said. "We came by the Cape and Sunda Strait. The Cape's not so bad, but I can't recommend Sunda Strait. We spent 10 days getting through it, from the 18th to the 17th of September." "You came from Sunda Strait since the 17th? In 15 days?" Riddle asked. "Man alive, that's navigation." Captain Prince shrugged. "Not when you're sure of your longitude. Just a simple matter of mathematics. He stopped and glared at Nat. "Captain Riddle, sir, have you ever seen a boat like this before?" Nat asked quickly, pointing to a canoe. The three stood at the rail and watched the long, slim craft, carved from one log, with a huge sail woven of matting. The crew of 8 dark-skinned, laughing natives looked as though they had not a care in the world. "That canoe isn't big enough to carry a flying jib," Nat said. "But look at that sail. It must be 1,000 square feet." "The canoe is an outrigger," said Captain Riddle. "See those bamboo longs athwart the boat, fore and aft, sticking out over the water, with the other logs joining their ends?" "Yes, but I thought that must be cargo." something too big to get into the canoe. You mean they're fastened on the canoe? Nat asked incredulously. There, a sudden gust of wind caught up the huge sail, and the canoe heeled over, throwing up a spray of water. There she goes, Nat yelled. But 6 of the laughing brown men slid out on the bamboo logs on the windward side, and their weight balanced the huge sail against the pressure of the wind. The canoe righted itself and sped through the water. Captain Prince pursed his lips in a silent whistle. That's something I'll tell. Nat stopped as Prince looked at him. Several times during their weeks at Manila, Nat felt Captain Prince's thoughtful stare on the back of his neck. And in December, when they weighed anchor for home, the captain drawled, "Well, Mr. Bowditch, you'll have a lot to tell her. Your sister, I mean, won't you?" "Aye, aye, sir." And Nat remembered something he had to see about right away. What was Elizabeth doing now, he wondered, halfway around the world? That night he began to jot notes of all he would tell her, and what he would leave out. The earthquake in Manila. He'd better skip that. Should he? Would she hear about it from someone else and be worried? Week after week, as he stood his watches and taught the crew with one part of his mind, another part of it seemed busy checking off the miles and the months between him and Elizabeth. At dawn one February morning, when they were in the Indian Ocean, the lookout's cry gave warning. "Sail ho! On the starboard bow!" On the heels of the cry came Lem's bow. "Loose your guns!" Long before the ship was near enough for the lookout to see her colors, the Adhd was ready for action. When the lookout yelled, "She's American!" Lem Harvey growled, "Secure your guns!" The ship was the Stanley. From Boston, Captain Daniels commanding. Captain Daniels gave them news of home. Grim news. America was at war with France. Not declared yet, he said, when he sailed. But doubtless it was declared by now. The French were sinking American ships left and right. "Keep your guns shot and your powder dry." Those were the parting words he bellowed through his trumpet. From then on, Nat could feel the tension in the air. He knew the lookouts strained their eyes as never before, sweeping the horizon for an enemy sail. He knew that many a man turned in all standing, ready for instant action. He knew he slept with one ear cocked for the pell-mell thud of feet overhead, and the cry, "All hands on deck!" It was the middle of a peaceful dog watch when danger struck. There was not a sail on the horizon or a storm cloud in the sky. Just a fair wind abaft the beam and the Adhd reaching for the cape. Tom Owens stumbled up a companionway yelling, "We've sprung a leak!" Lem Harvey was the first man at the pumps. Nat heard him growl, "Why couldn't it have been something simple, like a fight?" He knew what Lem meant. A bad leak was something you couldn't conquer with a broadside from your guns. Even if it didn't drive them to a long delay in a foreign port, it would be with them every league of the way to Salem Harbor. They'd be short-handed at all other work. Men would be needed at the pumps, night and day. As the weeks passed, they held their own against the leak, but no more. At last they loaded the deep-sea lead, sounded, and brought up black mud. They were off Block Island. "We'll make it," Tom Owens roared. Lem growled, "There's many a reef between Block and Baker's Island." But the Adhd plowed on. Sand and the deep sea lead now. They were off Nantucket. Tom grinned. "How about it, Lem?" "I'd like $1 for every ship that's gone between here and Baker's Island," Lem growled. At dawn one morning late in May came the lookouts. "Land ho!" They had sighted Cape Ann. The thought flicked through Nat's head. They're too tired to cheer. I know I am. Then a hoarse roar split the air and fairly shook the rigging, and Nat felt he was yelling, too. Captain Prince was on deck now, grim-jawed, alert. Danger was not over when they sighted Cape Ann. And still, 6 hours ahead of them, at the speed they were making. 6 hours, and one miscalculation could wreck a ship in sight of home. Gale's ledge to starboard. Pilgrim ledge. How many ships have been wrecked within a stone's throw of home? Whaleback to starboard. A good berth now to the northwest point of Baker's Island. Mid-channel now between Baker's Island and Little Misery. Captain Prince was keeping Naugus Head and Coney Island in line now. A narrow line of safety. Hardy's Rocks and Rising States Ledge and the shoals of Eagle Island on the south. On the north, Bowditch Ledge. When he was young, Nat remembered. He had felt proud of a ledge named Bowditch. Later, he learned that having a ledge named for your ship meant disaster instead of honor. Bowditch Ledge, astern to the north of them. Thoughts of home filled Nat's head, mixed with his thoughts of the channel they were following. Was Dr. Bentley on his lookout now? Had he sighted the Astrea? Was his flag whipping in the breeze, giving the news to the town? West by north now, to give a good berth to the haste. Was Elizabeth on the captain's walk, watching for the Astrea? What was she thinking about? Was she remembering their goodbye? Or had she forgotten? Nat could feel his heart pounding. Over the roar of the blood in his ears, he heard Prince's voice. Southwest by south. The helmsman answered. Aye, aye, sir. Southwest by south. Abbott Rock to starboard now. The shoals of middle ground to larboard. Abbott Rock to starboard now. The shoals of middle ground to larboard. Would Elizabeth be on the wharf when they anchored? Of course she wouldn't, Nat told himself. He'd rather she wouldn't be. All that crowd and confusion, everyone talking at the same time, wives greeting their husbands, mothers looking for their sons, every Tom, Dick, and Harry there, wanting to know about his venture. She wouldn't be there. Elizabeth was the first person he saw when he reached the wharf. Elizabeth, standing on something to see over the crowd, and smiling and waving. Somehow, he wormed his way through the crowd to reach her. Nat, Elizabeth called, we've been waiting for hours. A man's voice said, seems like days. Nat saw the man with her then, a tall, handsome chap with dark hair sweeping back in a widow's peak and smiling dark eyes. The young man said, I don't suppose you remember me, Mr. Bowditch. I haven't been around Salem much for years. I was knee-high to a grasshopper when I went to Harvard. Nat shook hands and smiled and called David Farrell by name. He said of course he remembered him. It was fine to see him again. It's good to see you too, sir, David told him. Elizabeth talked so much about you, like you were her big brother or something. Almost like you were her father. Of course, Nat thought. He should have known. She was 17. He was 24. Just a simple matter of mathematics, Mr. Bowditch, he told himself grimly. You should have figured that one out. Thanks for listening. Please be sure to like and subscribe.
And leave a comment.
Carry On, Mr. Bowditch, by Jean Lee Latham. Chapter 17. Lunars and Moonlight. I want to hear all about everything, Nat, Elizabeth said. David Farrell smiled. We both do. Nat thanked them. He told Elizabeth he tried to see her soon. When I get over feeling like a fool, he told himself. Just now, he said, he must go to the custom house with Captain Prince. Perhaps this evening? Elizabeth asked. It might be a week or two before he could see her, he said. He'd be awfully busy, taking care of the cargo. For a moment, Elizabeth's eyes studied him gravely. Then she smiled and said it was fine he was home. She left the wharf with David Farrell. After Captain Prince and Nat reported to the custom house, they went into Mr. Derby's office. Mr. Derby questioned questioned them briefly, and nodded. His mind did not seem to be on the success of the Austria. He told them news of the war threat. The trouble with France dragged on. It'll never be settled until this country wakes up and builds a navy, Prince said. Mr. Derby nodded. President Washington knows we need a navy. He unfolded a newspaper. Here's what he said in his 8th annual message to Congress last December. He read some passages he had marked. To an active external commerce, the protection of a naval force is indispensable. It is in our experience that the most sincere neutrality is not a sufficient guard against the depredations of nations at war. To secure respect to a neutral flag requires a naval force, organized and ready to vindicate it from insult or aggression. This may even prevent the necessity of going to war, Prince said. And he's right. But when will he convince Congress? They're finally convinced, Mr. Derby said. They've authorized the building of 6 frigates. Prince said. 6 frigates. Mr. Derby nodded. I know. It is not enough. I'm urging the government to let private citizens build warships too. Salem will build a frigate the minute we have permission. Nat thought of what men said of Mr. Derby, that he could see around corners. Did he see war coming now, in spite of all our efforts to stay at peace? Mr. Derby's secretary interrupted to say that Mr. Blunt, the publisher from Newbury, wanted to see them. A moment later, an impatient young man entered the office, nodded briefly to Mr. Derby and Captain Prince, and glared at Nat. I was talking to Mr. Collins, he said. He tells me you think you found an error in Moore's navigation. I did. In which table? Nat told him. Mr. Blunt gave a short laugh and relaxed. Do you know who compiled that table? Neville Maskelyne, the Royal Astronomer of England. You'd be as apt to find a mistake in Newton's Principia. Principia? Nat said. I did find an error in it. Let's see if I can quote the spot. Well, roughly translated, it went something like this. And he quoted the passage and pointed out the error. Mr. Blunt's jaw fell. Well, I'll be. Where did you go to college? London? Paris? You didn't get that kind of education here. Where did you go? I didn't. Mr. Blunt opened his mouth twice before any sound came. Finally, he said, could you point out the error in Maskelyne's table? Which one? Nat asked. There were several. Mr. Blunt's round face swelled and turned red. At last he swallowed hard and muttered, all of them. Captain Prince said, and you might ask him about his new way of working lunars, Mr. Blunt. A new way of working lunars? Nat explained it briefly. Mr. Blunt's jaw dropped again. But, that's tremendous. I'd like to include it in the new edition of Moore that I'm bringing out. And, if you could just cast your eye over some of the tables in the book. You don't cast your eye over navigation tables, Nat barked. When I checked that one table of Maskelyne's, I worked every figure 3 times, just to be sure I was right. 3 times? Every figure? But why not? Nat roared. Mathematics is nothing if it isn't correct. Men's lives depend on those figures. Mr. Blunt swelled up and turned red again, but after a little he said, Quite so, Mr. Bowditch. I wish we had time for you to check all the tables and more. At any rate, I certainly want to include your new method of taking lunars. Nat promised to see him in 2 weeks, when they'd taken care of their cargo. Soon he, Captain Prince, and Mr. Derby were deep in figures. Time and again, during the next 2 weeks, Nat thought of Elizabeth. Was he ready to see her now? Ready to feel like a big brother? Her father? Or something of the sort? He'd give himself a little more time, he decided. When he was done checking on the cargo, he was glad he had another excuse to put off seeing her. He must talk to Mr. Blunt about Moore's Navigator. I wish we had time for you to check all the tables, Mr. Blunt repeated. But a great many of the signatures of the book are already printed. He must have seen Nat's bewilderment. He said, Perhaps you think of a signature as a man's name. We printers have another meaning for it. A signature is a single large sheet of paper in which certain pages of the book are printed. We arrange the pages so that, when the signature is folded and trimmed, the pages are in order. Nat said he'd be glad to check some of the tables that weren't yet printed. Glad of an excuse to keep busy, he thought. He worked with the tables, and the thought of Elizabeth stayed somewhere under the figures. Most of the time. I'm getting over it, he told himself. But every time there was a knock on his door, his heart jumped. Maybe it was a message from Elizabeth, but it never was. Dr. Prince came to see him. I wanted to remind you, Nat. The philosophical library is still open to you, if you want to read the books. Nat thanked him. I've been thinking about the library, Dr. Prince. I'd like to join it now, if it's all right with the members. More than all right. We'll be honored to have you. Dr. Prince's eyes twinkled. I'm sure the books will be pleased. No one else has ever understood them so well as you. Dr. Holyoke came, wanting to hear all about the lunars firsthand and to talk astronomy with Nat. Nat felt a warm glow of pleasure. Dr. Holyoke was more than a beloved physician. He was one of the founders of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in Boston. I correspond with quite a few astronomers, Dr. Holyoke said, but I don't have much chance to talk to one. I'm no astronomer, Nat protested. No, but you figured out an easier and more accurate way to check longitude. Astronomers and scientists have been working on that quite a while, for several hundred years. The chronometer's the best way, Nat said. When all ships can afford a chronometer, until they can, they'll bless you and your lunars, even if you aren't an astronomer. Come to think of it, I believe a carpenter invented the chronometer, didn't he? Dr. Holyoke grinned and was gone. Alone again, Nat tried to work, but it was no use. He really should call on the Boardmans, he told himself. He should tell Mrs. Boardman about the man he'd met in Manila who'd known her husband. At the Boardmans, old Minna greeted Nat with a smile. Mrs. Boardman and the girls would be so sorry to miss him, she said. They were in Boston. Hard to tell when they would be back. Mrs. Boardman wrote that they were having a fine time. So many parties. David Fair was in Boston, too. Nat went back to his work. Autumn came. The trees flamed scarlet and yellow. The harvest moon was gold. A note came for Matt, in Elizabeth's handwriting. His fingers shook when he opened it. A group were going Thursday night to a farm for a party, Elizabeth wrote. The grown-ups will visit in Mr. Wiggins' house, but we're going to have a party in the barn. A husking bee, and bob for apples, and everything. I do hope you can come. Especially. Nat went to sleep smiling. She wanted him. Especially. Thursday morning, he saw David Fair. David was cheerful, too. We're awfully glad you can come, Nat. Well, this is just between us. But I'm hoping to make a very important announcement tonight. Are you? Nat realized how flat his words sounded. He forced himself to smile. That's fine. Nothing's settled yet, David said. So you won't tell anyone? Not a word. Nat promised. He went home with a cold lump in his chest, where his heart should be. So that was why Elizabeth hoped he could come. Especially, he was to be among the first to know. Big brother, Nat muttered. It's a wonder David didn't ask my permission instead of her mother's. 5 times that afternoon, he decided he wouldn't go. 5 times he changed his mind. At 7 o'clock that evening, he was alone in the crowd in Wiggins' barn. Not that anyone could tell how he felt. He was sure of that. He knew his face kept smiling, all by itself. He'd given it a good talking to before he came. He knew his tongue kept making the right answers. But his thoughts were anywhere else. Everywhere else. The party at Mary's, when he'd first talked to Elizabeth, the morning after Liza's funeral, when Elizabeth had brought him the Latin book. Most of all, the morning he sailed on the Astrea, when Elizabeth told him goodbye. When Elizabeth stood on tiptoe. The crowd began husking corn. David called cheerily, "Here, Nat, sit by us. We've saved you a place." Nat's face smiled. His tongue said, "Oh, fine." He sat by Elizabeth, husked corn, and smiled at David's constant stream of chatter. "I haven't found a red ear yet," David complained. "I should have bribed Mr. Wiggins to give me a dozen." He bent his head and looked into Elizabeth's face. "You know what that means, me proud beauty. 13 kisses." "A dozen is 12, Elizabeth said. "Tell him that." David laughed. "I have a baker somewhere in my ancestors. I always give 13 kisses for a dozen. 1 for your right eyebrow, 1 for your left eyebrow." And Nat didn't realize his hands had stopped husking corn. An ear hit him on the chin. Someone yelled, "Nat, get to work!" Smiling again, Nat grabbed the ear of corn, ripped back the husk. The ear was red. A shout of laughter went up. "Kiss her, Nat, kiss her!" Nat's heart sank. What a time to kiss Elizabeth. He dreamed of this minute halfway around the world. In his dreams, they would have been alone, maybe looking at the stars. He would have told her the legend of Machiko, and then somehow, he'd never figure out just how, he would have worked around to telling her that he loved her. But now, in the midst of 24 teasing, laughing people, he must kiss her and make a joke of it. He ordered his face to smile again and put his arm around her. He couldn't think of anything funny to say, so he borrowed David's word. "Come here, me proud beauty." She turned to him, laughing, and was suddenly grave. "Nat," she whispered. "Nat," she whispered. Nat found he didn't have to work around what he wanted to say. He just said it. "I love you, Elizabeth. I've always loved you since you were..." And he kissed her. Another ear of corn hit Nat. Another voice shouted, "Here, Nat!" Nat saw the ripped back husk and the red kernels. He laughed and tossed the ear on the pile of corn. "Keep it. I don't need it." He pulled Elizabeth to her feet. "Where's your mother?" Elizabeth's eyes widened. In the house." "Then come on, I have something to say to her." Outside the barn, Elizabeth stopped and leaned against the barn door. "Let's just stand here a minute, Nat, till I get my breath." Nat chuckled, leaned his hand against the door, and stood watching her face in the moonlight. Is the moon that big everywhere, Nat?" "Nowhere but in Salem," he told her. "Other places, it's just, well, moon size." How big is moon size?" he teased her. "You really want to know? Or are you scared of your mother?" "I'm not a bit scared. I want to know about the moon." "Well, the closest estimation we have is that the diameter is 2,160 miles. Now, shall we go?" From the doorway, someone said, "People are right. Figures do run out his ears, don't they?" It was Polly. The three of them laughed together. She's just stalling. Thinks she's scared of her mother. Pooh! Aunt Mary won't argue about it, Polly said. She should have seen this coming for ages. Nat blinked. What? A woman can always tell by things like this. Polly tossed her head. A girl, then. But a girl knows more about love before she's a woman than a man ever knows. She went back in the barn. Elizabeth said, Tell me some more about the moon, Nat. Nat chuckled. The radiance of the moon is special in Salem. It comes from your face. He stopped, pleased with himself. That was almost like poetry, wasn't it? I wish I could make pretty speeches. Elizabeth tucked her hand under his arm. Pretty speeches? When a man can make pretty speeches, I always wonder how long he's been practicing. Come on, Nat. Let's tell Mother. In March, just before Nat's birthday, they were married. The months that followed were the happiest Nat had ever known. The only shadow that ever crossed their days came from news of the sea. A ship long overdue, a ship returning with word of missing men, a ship reported lost in action against the French, and men coming back with grim tales of storms off the Cape or the Horn. Then Elizabeth's eyes would darken with fear. Nat, I hope you never double the Cape again. I couldn't sleep thinking about it. The Cape's not so bad. You're safer there than lots of places. For instance, take the Mediterranean. There you'd be running from a French privateer, and probably be hauled by a Barbary pirate. Then he told her horrendous tales of what happened to crews that were captured by Barbary pirates. Men put in chains, sold as slaves. Elizabeth finally agreed that perhaps the Cape wasn't so bad after all. Nat felt proud of himself, making the Mediterranean sound worse than the Cape. Captain Prince came to call. The Astrea was sailing again in August. I want you with supercargo, Nat, and no more second-rate duty for you. No watches to stand. Nat grinned. I'd want to be worth my salt between ports. You are. You in your teaching. I spent a long time at sea, but I've never had less trouble with the crew. So you'll come, supercargo, and all your time between ports. Now, Elizabeth protested, when there's so much trouble with France. Prince shrugged it off. There's nothing to worry about. Do you think Derby would send the Astrea now if he thought there was any danger? He knows things are quieting down. Elizabeth didn't look convinced. With all those frigates being built, the Constitution and the Constellation, and that's why things are quieting down, Prince declared. The best way to stay at peace is to be prepared for war. Elizabeth finally smiled. Of course. I remember that. And I hope you have a good voyage. Prince smiled. You're a proper mariner's wife, Elizabeth. You know an anchor won't hold if the cable's too short. A man always needs another shot in the locker. Elizabeth's smile was puzzled. Another length of cable to stick out when a ship threatens to drag her anchor, Prince said. I'll remember that, Elizabeth promised. Good, Captain Prince smiled. Nothing to worry about. This is just a short trip. To Cadiz, then into the Mediterranean, to Alicante. He waved a gay salute and was gone. Into the Mediterranean. Elizabeth paled and was silent. Nat couldn't think of anything to say either. Not after all the stories he told her about the dangers of the Mediterranean. She said she had just thought of something and fled up the stairs. Nat stared after her and then turned back, cursing himself for a fool. What could a man tell a woman about the sea so that she wouldn't worry? Elizabeth did not come downstairs again until supper time. She was still pale, but she laughed and talked of everything but the sea. After supper, though, conversation lagged. Nat was glad when someone knocked. It was Lem Harvey, dressed in his best, with his wife and his brother-in-law, Zach Selby. "The wife just had to see you, Mr. Bowditch, sir," Amanda Harvey said, "to thank you for what you did for Lem. I can't tell you how much I thank you. My Lem signed on the Betsy as second mate," Zach Selby sneered. "You'd think he was running a whole fleet of ships, single-handed, to hear her take on." Sour grapes, Nat thought. Zach's still before the mast, and he's 10 years older than Lem. He said, "I'm glad for Lem, Amanda, but I didn't do it for him. He did it for himself. He worked and studied harder than any man in the crew." "That's just it, sir," Amanda said. "Nobody else ever got him to stick his nose in a book." Zach sneered again. "Books! Sailing men have come to a pretty pass when they have to sail by books. Time was they could double the Horn with nothing but log, lead, and lookout." "That's right," Nat agreed. They doubled the Horn, and sometimes they got home again. But what about all the ships that don't come home? If sailing by book makes men a little safer, what's wrong with it?" Nat lowered his gaze and shuffled his feet. "Ain't just my idea," he muttered. "Plenty men think what I think. Sailing by book is a mighty lubberly business." Amanda said, "Oh, you! Don't pay any attention to him, Mr. Bowditch. His nose is out of joint. Lem and me, we're mighty proud of a book sailor in the Harvey family." When they had gone, Elizabeth smiled. "And I am mighty proud of a supercargo in the Bowditch family. Nat, darling, forgive me for being such a coward this afternoon. I won't do it again, I promise you." 2 days later, Captain Prince was back, not smiling this time. "You and your teaching," he roared. "Lem Harvey shipped as second mate on the Betsy." Elizabeth's eyes widened. "But Captain Prince, aren't you proud of him?" Prince flushed, then growled, "Oh, of course. Just pleased to pieces. But blast it all. He was the best man we had on the guns. We needed him." And he stamped out. Elizabeth gasped. "Nat, there is danger. He knows it." "Oh, darling," she sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm not going to spoil the rest of our time together." Nat hugged her. 10 years from now, we'll be laughing at this, won't we? Of course, no more solemn talk." She kept her promise until the August morning the Adhd was to sail. Then she stared at Nat with stricken eyes. "Nat, dear." "Goodbye, darling." Nat teased her gently. "I'm going to teach you French. They say it better. Au revoir. That's till your return. Goodbye always sounds so final." Elizabeth whitened. "I didn't mean it that way, Nat. I didn't. But if it were goodbye, Nat, remember this. You've made me happier than any other girl ever was in the world." A chill tinkled Nat's spine. He kissed her. "Au revoir." "Goodbye, Nat." Then quickly she added, "I'll learn French when you come back." Nat smiled, but he felt a cold lump in his chest. Thanks for listening. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment.